Hi folks, some new Fusion 360 tips, tricks, and quality of life improvements that we're seeing and using. First off, you want to rough the face of this part, but you want a little bit more control over your toolpath. There's a trick on how to do this with 2D contour. I'll pick a single edge as if we're just machining along that final edge. But if I actually want to rough this full face, what I'll do is under passes, add roughing passes. Let's say a step over 0.05 inches and just say 100 step overs for now. What that will do is create 100 step overs, which obviously isn't what we want. Go back into edit though, turn on stock contours, and you can pick your face as the stock contour and it trims that toolpath to the shape of your stock. In this particular example, it's really helpful because this is a Johnny 5 part. We're actually making it out of round bar on a 4th axis, so I don't want to face it going too far one way. And this toolpath gives me that control that I want. Now, for those of you with a sharp eye, you may notice that our toolpath doesn't look like the stock contour that would follow the arc of this part. And that's because my other favorite trick is to actually use CAD sketches to specifically control that part. And I like to label those sketches. Much nicer to find something that says area to face rather than sketch 2. I can control the size of this to drive that toolpath, which was really important here because I wanted enough access to part off the part when we were done, but not to interfere with the jaws. Although, side note, you'll see this in a future video, we did end up modifying these jaws. Next up, let's say you have a bunch of 1/4 inch end mills programmed in a part and you realize, you know what, I actually want all these to be a different tool number, like a 3/8 inch end mill. There's a really good trick that can help save time. So let's say we want tool 104 to be both used for this operation and this next operation that was programmed with T105. Rather than editing the operation, finding the tool in your tool library, etc., if you expand both operations, you can click tool 104 and drag it down over tool 105 on the operation where you want it to replace it, light up, and it not only replaces it, it regenerates the toolpath and updates it accordingly. Next up, I love customizing Fusion to our preferences for quality of life and repeatability. And it used to be harder, I'll actually show you that trick in a second, but it used to be harder, if not impossible, to set defaults on checkboxes. Well, they sneakily added a little 3-dot thing to the right of it. If you click on it, you can now choose what you want to save those checkboxes as the defaults for, etc. So that's a great addition, but there was already a way to do that, although I don't know how well known it was, by right-clicking, compare and edit, and if you search for the parameter that was a checkbox, like both ways, you have a more traditional yes/no type drop down. You can change that setting, right click, and set it as your default there. Next up, a subtle but actually really helpful improvement to 2D adaptive. I'm 99% sure this is a new thing. If it's not, forgive me, but used to be the case that if you clicked the contour you wanted to select for 2D adaptive, it would commonly give you a behavior like this, which is not what we want. You know, if you're looking at this part as a layman, you realize I want a 2D adaptive, that pocket right in there, not the toolpath that it just generated. And there were ways to work around it by changing your stock selection like so, but you can now more reliably pick faces instead of contours. Now, it did give us that same behavior here where it looks like it's going to do the whole thing. I think it will, but if you uncheck stock contours now, simply clicking on that face gives us the logical toolpath that I want for that adaptive. And it's frankly just easier. We were modifying this fixture and we had all these areas we wanted to pocket out, and it's a lot quicker to click, click, click here than it is to try to zoom in and out and really try to click on detailed toolpaths with your mouse cursor, and we've all been there when we've goofed on those. So a welcomed improvement. Another quality of life improvement, if you right click on a toolpath, I think the edit notes has been here before. And again, I might be wrong because we didn't have a flag or way of knowing that. So you could add something like, can we increase step over? And whether this is a note to yourself or for us, now we're working in more of a team environment and we want to be able to see these notes pop up to each other. And now we have this nice icon right at the end. Hover over it, you get the message. But again, the biggest thing is to realize, oh, someone left a note here. Much easier to realize you need to take a look at it. If you're not already using or aware of the ability to synchronize your visibility or view with active setup, it is wonderfully helpful. As an example here, Op 1 is this side of a tombstone. If I want to go switch over and look at the Op 2 fixtures, if I activate any of those setups, it automatically, for us, just changes the visibility. I don't actually love syncing the view because it moves your part around sometimes in a disorienting way. But for us, the visibility is wonderful because now I see the Op2 parts, and if I want to go back and work on Op1, selecting it does just that. And the reason I brought this part up in this video was to show we've kind of run into some, I would almost say, difficulties bringing our Okuma Horizontal online with Toolpaths, because if we want to do a bunch of work on an Op2 part, the way we're programming our Op2 parts is we just program one, and then we use the post-process work offset option to duplicate that 4 times. So that does 1, 2, 3, 4. Pretty normal way to do it. Where that workflow breaks down is after we do some operations, we want to come through and with a single toolpath face all of these parts. So what we have to do is we have to break up these setups. So here we have a single work coordinate system that does all the facing, and then we switch back into a pattern, and then we switch back and forth. And the reason this all works is using NC programs. We've done a separate video on that, but what this allows us to do is to control what setups are selected and repost our code with no hassle, no risk. And furthermore, it uses the right post processor, goes to the right address. I think more folks are using this now, but if you're not, you got to get on the NC programs bandwagon. Speaking of the horizontal, this technically isn't a fusion tip and trick, but I still want to show it. I wanted to flip this part over and machine this top side, and I really wanted my datum to be on this backside plane. And because there was a kind of a top hat on the part, just wasn't going to be easy to probe it. Don't forget about the ability to do something simple like a little bit of super glue and a parallel, a gauge block. We're using an angle block here. A little dab of it holds it on to the backside of your part plenty rigidly for your probe to come in and touch that part. And then when you're done, you can just break it off by hand, and a clean, brand new razor will scrape that super glue off, no problem at all. And finally, some really nice changes for 3+2 or multi-axis stuff. When you're doing a 5-axis orientation or a tool orientation now, two nice improvements. Number one is you can align the tool orientation to your current view. So if you notice down here, my work coordinate system, the Z-axis just aligned to how I'm looking at the part. So I can literally kind of pretend I'm the tool and think, oh, okay, I want to tackle this part kind of from this angle, and watch the blue cursor right now. It automatically updates. Furthermore, once you set that, you can choose preview for accessibility analysis. Now from this view, it looks totally green because the tool can see everything from this view, but as soon as I moved a little bit, the red are areas that tool couldn't reach in that current orientation. So super nice quality of life upgrade there. As always, folks, hope you learned something. Hope you enjoyed. Take care. See you soon.